a rhythm in game one. Why do you think you were able to get rolling pretty much right out of the bat tonight?
Just mentality. I think today was one of the hardest game I had to play. I'm battling out there. I try and do my best to help the team win. But just my mentality, st- have a great start, and then team is gonna follow me. So they follow me and Kai, and we got to do that.
Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest episode of Inside the Mavs. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, make sure you like and comment on the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to the podcast, give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts for free. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. The Mavericks get a massive Game 2 win on the road as they even up their best-of-7 series with the Oklahoma City Thunder at one game apiece after getting a 9-point win, 119-110, as Luka Doncic and P.J. Washington, the stars for the Mavericks, Tim Hardaway Jr. with 17 massive points off the bench, helped the Dallas Mavericks be able to get back to Dallas with the series tied at one game apiece in a game that was considered a must-win after an embarrassing and disappointing loss in Game 1 to the Thunder. The Mavericks picked themselves up off the mat and are able to get a gutsy road win over a terrific Thunder team where they kept punching back after the Mavericks got off to a terrific start. But it was the Mavericks, especially in that third quarter, which we will get to throughout the course of our show, that they were able to use a massive 18-4 run to be able to get themselves what would be an 11-point lead, and they were able to hang on down the stretch in the fourth quarter where their defense was the story in the fourth quarter. But the story of game number 2 was P.J. Washington Jr. P.J. Washington with an absolutely massive game, going 7 of 11 from downtown, with 29 points. He had 11 rebounds in the game to go along with 4 assists, and his hot shooting from the three-point line was absolutely critical for a Mavericks team that in Game 2 went 18 of 37 from downtown, shooting 48.6% from three, something that we have been talking about constantly in this postseason. When would the Mavericks three-point shooting come to life? It finally came to life in Game 2 when they absolutely had to have it, led by P.J. Washington, who had his best game of the postseason, and as a Dallas Maverick, being able to come up huge for his team when they needed him most. In fact, Luka Doncic and P.J. Washington making a little bit of NBA history thanks to Did You Know by ESPN. Luka Doncic and P.J. Washington making Mavericks history, becoming the first duo in NBA history to each have at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, and at least 5 made three-pointers in an NBA playoff game. The first duo in NBA history to do that. Luka Doncic himself, he had a big night, obviously, going 11 of 21 from the field. He had 29 points, going 5 of 8 from downtown. And again, something that we've been talking about on this podcast, something that I talked about during the preview show that we had going into Game 2, that Luka Doncic's three-point shooting had become the story of this postseason for the Mavericks offensively after shooting under 25% from three against the Clippers in their first-round series win against Los Angeles. He was 1 of 8 in game number 1 from the three-point line against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Luka Doncic turned it around and did so big time for the Mavericks, going 5 of 8 from distance in game number 2, where they absolutely needed him to be able to hit some threes to get things going offensively. Starting in that first quarter for the Mavericks, they got off to a quick start, and that was something that they needed to do to show the Thunder that they were going to be punching back throughout the course of this game. And first of all, leading and being the aggressors on the offensive end. The Mavericks started on a 7-0 run overall, a 13-2 start for the Mavericks as Luka Doncic had 8 of the first 13 points for Dallas. The Thunder will respond with an 11-3 run to pull within 3 at 16-13 as both Jalen Williams, Arkansas and Santa Clara Williams, had 8 of the first 15 points combined for the Thunder, but the Mavericks were able to maintain a lead midway through the first quarter at 19-15. But the Mavericks would respond by extending the lead, I should say, back to 10, outscoring the Thunder 13-7 over a 4-minute span to lead 32-22 with just over 2 minutes left in the first quarter, as the Dallas Mavericks saw the Thunder close the first quarter on a 10-4 run to cut the lead to 4 going into the second quarter. But it was Luka Doncic and P.J. Washington getting things started, especially from the three-point line. Luka Doncic capping off that 13-2 start with his second three-pointer from the right wing. P.J. Washington knocking down threes as well. And something that we've been talking about, the Mavericks are going to get plenty of opportunities to knock down corner threes, and P.J. Washington took advantage of those opportunities, especially in the first quarter. His second three-pointer of the first quarter was from the left corner. His third three-pointer in the first quarter was from the right corner. The Mavericks are going to have plenty of opportunities. We've talked about it plenty of times when it comes to the Oklahoma City Thunder and their defense. Their defense is going to allow you to have plenty of open three-pointers from the left and the right corners. In fact, 13% of the shots that they give up throughout the course of games and in the season were from the corners. And clearly the scouting report for the Mavericks has been to try to take advantage of those opportunities. And P.J. Washington was able to do that specifically because that is going to be his role as a guy that not only he can get to the basket to be able to put the ball on the deck, but his role in this offense is going to be able to knock down wide open three-pointers from the corners when they're available. And that's exactly what he was able to do in that first quarter. And on to the second quarter, the Thunder started the second quarter outscoring the Mavericks 5-2 to pull within one at 38-37. But the Mavericks again responding with a 9-0 run over a 2.5-minute span to push their lead back to 47-37 after a Derek Lively dunk off of a lob pass for Tim Hardaway Jr., who we'll get to throughout the course of our show. Overall, it was a 14-2 run capped off by a Luka Doncic jumper as the Mavericks led by 13 at 52-39 with just under 7 minutes left in that second quarter. P.J. Washington, another fabulous start for the Mavericks, had 8 of the first 16 points of the quarter for Dallas. But it was getting the vertical game going once again, but also the three-point shooting for the Dallas Mavericks. They were able to get out in transition. You saw P.J. Washington get a dunk in transition off of a Dante Exum outlet pass, but Washington knocking down his fourth three-pointer. He did it from the top of the key. Then he knocked down his fifth three-pointer, this time again in the left corner, something that we just talked about, being able to take advantage of corner opportunities from the three-point line. And Josh Green, for the second straight game, had a really, really nice game. He had, I thought, a huge shot toward the end of the first half. It came with about with 9 seconds left in the first half. He hit a three-pointer with just under 2 minutes left in the first half to make it 62-56. And then after a little bit of a scramble play, Josh Green was able to knock down another three-pointer to be able to extend the Mavericks lead back up to 6, because if the Thunder had gotten that rebound, they could have had a chance to be able to tie the game going into halftime. But Josh Green was able to make the play and then knock down the three off the assist, and that's where the Mavericks stood at halftime, up 68-62. But you look at the first half numbers for the Mavericks based on what they did from the three-point line, 12 of 24 from downtown. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't do math very well, but that's 50% from three in the first half. 12 of 24, and that was really the difference in the first half and what they were able to do, because both teams shot exactly 53%. In fact, both the Mavericks and the Thunder were 25 of 47 from the field in the first half. But it was the three-point shooting that was the difference, as the Mavericks made 6 more three-pointers than the Oklahoma City Thunder, where, of course, that means that you were a plus 18 in that particular category in the first half when you go 12 of 24 versus the 6 of 16 that the Thunder were in the first half from the three-point line. But you give the Thunder credit, they were able to go on a 17-7 run to get the lead down to 3 with just under 3 minutes left in that second quarter. But the Mavericks would outscore the Thunder by 12-9 in that final 3 minutes, as the Mavericks were able to shoot 36% from 3 and 50% overall in that second quarter to stake them to a 6-point lead. going into halftime. So for the Mavericks, the three-point shooting was there, especially from the corners, whether it was Josh Green, P.J. Washington, Luka Doncic, setting the tone from an aggressive offensive standpoint. He had his best scoring first quarter of this postseason, where, of course, in that first quarter, he got out to a great start with 16 points, going 6 of 8 from the field. He was doing a little bit of everything in that first half, particularly in that first quarter, where he scored or assisted on 24 of the 36 points that the Mavericks scored in that first quarter. So you could tell that he wanted to set the tone on the offensive end from the outset of the game, getting his guys involved, but also being the aggressor in terms of scoring the basketball as well. More on this game coming up here in just a moment on the other side of the break, as Tim Hardaway Jr. made his presence felt in game number 2 for the Mavericks to help them get this 9-point win and even up their series at 1 game apiece. But before we get there, let's hear from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast, and let's hear from Aura.
Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description.
Back here on Inside the Mavs, thank you for hanging out with us through that spot, and thank you to today's sponsor of our video and our podcast in Aura, as the Mavericks get the 119-110 win on the road over the Oklahoma City Thunder to tie their best-of-7 series at 1 game apiece, with Game 3 on Saturday afternoon at the American Airlines Center, where the Mavericks come home with an opportunity to take a 2-1 series lead after throwing a huge counterpunch and getting themselves a big road win over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the Oklahoma City Thunder. We were detailing how well the Mavericks shot the ball in the first half, going 12 of 24 from the three-point line, 50% from three. Both teams shooting 53% from the field in the first half. Both teams going on huge runs to try and counterpunch the other throughout the course of Game 2. But it was the Mavericks who were able to withstand the fight all night long to be able to come out of Oklahoma City with the win, and detailing the spectacular night of P.J. Washington. P.J. Washington notching a career playoff high 29 points and the 11 rebounds that he had. His first 25-point double-double as a Dallas Maverick. By the way, those 7 3-pointers that he hit, going 7 of 11 from downtown, he became one of 6 Mavericks to notch 7 or more 3-pointers in a playoff game in Mavericks history. Shout out to Mavs PR for that particular statistic, as, again, putting into perspective the kind of night that P.J. Washington had. In fact, P.J. Washington speaking post-game about his thoughts on how he felt coming into the game and what the Mavericks were able to do to be able to get this win. Here's P.J. Washington post-game after Game 2.
Did you have a feeling when you were warming up that you were going to be that hot?
I felt good last night, this morning. Going into the game, I had confidence in my shot. I knew I was going to get open corner shots, so just had to come in here and knock them down.
How would you describe kind of the team's mentality going into the game? Do you feel your back's against the wall?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a must-win game for us in those games. I feel like we played our best. We got out in transition. We didn't foul. We rebounded well, and we played a great team ball.
So P.J. Washington feeling good, taking advantage of the opportunities that he had and made the most of them in game 2, especially with his shooting from the three-point line. But speaking of taking advantage of the opportunity and the moment, that's where we get to a critical portion of this game in the third quarter, where the Dallas Mavericks saw the Oklahoma City Thunder. Of course, the Mavericks are up by 6 going into the second half. Thunder started off on a quick 8-2 run to tie the game at 70. Overall, it was a 10-3 start for the Thunder as they were able to take their first lead of the game at 72-71 with 9 minutes left in that third after an Aaron Wiggins bucket after the Thunder made the adjustment like they did in game 1, taking Josh Giddey out of the lineup, inserting Aaron Wiggins to provide them to score. You remember in game 1, Wiggins had a big second quarter with 12 points to really be able to get things started offensively and going for the Thunder in that second quarter. But this time for the Mavericks, they were able to make the adjustment because they countered with, yes, boys and girls, Tim Hardaway Jr. Welcome to the NBA playoffs, and let us being reintroduced to you in this postseason as the Dallas Mavericks, who saw the Thunder start 5 of 6 from the field and 3 of 4 from downtown. The Mavericks started cold, going 1 of 6 from the field, as they were able to see the Thunder take what would be a 75-72 lead with just under 9 minutes left in that third, and what was a 13-4 overall start for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But the Dallas Mavericks responded with what would be the game-changing run of the game, going on an 18-4 run. And I want you to really pay attention here, because the Mavericks' critical moment in this game. So the Mavericks were tied at 77. Luka Doncic, ironically, tied at 77. Luka Doncic gets a layup in transition. He then goes out at what would be the 6:28 mark of the third quarter, tied at 77. Now, we know what happens when the Mavericks see Luka Doncic go out. We always get a little bit of trepidation because we want to see the Mavericks be able to at least be even by the time that Luka Doncic re-enters the game, because you cannot find yourself going into the negative and then trying to catch yourself back up once Luka gets back into the game. But a critical point in that third quarter, Luka Doncic goes out with 6:28 left in the third quarter. The Mavericks proceed to outscore the Thunder 16-7, going a +9 during that span, as they were able to establish what would be a 93-84 lead as they were up by 9. Because again, you look at what happened, tied at 77, the Thunder were able to, the Mavericks outscoring them 16-7, getting them to 93-84. And it was Tim Hardaway Jr. in the middle of that, at one point scoring 10 straight points for the Mavericks, as I mentioned, going on that 18-4 run in that third quarter that saw Tim Hardaway Jr. absolutely take over. He was able to knock down a three-pointer with 3:40 left in that third. The Kyrie Irving got a steal on one end, then got THJ in a layup on the other end to push the Mavericks lead back up to 87-79. Then Tim Hardaway Jr. would drill a three-pointer on the left wing. He got fouled on the three-point shot, which he made. He would miss the free throw, but nonetheless, they were up 90-79 with 3:41 left in that third quarter. And again, P.J. Washington ending what was that 13-4 start by the Thunder with a three-pointer to tie the game at 75. Then Luka Doncic gets the layup in transition that we mentioned off of a steal by P.J. Washington to tie the game at 77. And then Josh Green knocks down a three-pointer. This time, again, we talked about the corner threes. He knocked down a right corner three to give the Mavericks the lead at 80-77, and the floodgates were open from there. But you give Tim Hardaway Jr. the credit for picking himself up off the mat after a terrible game one, after not having played at all in the postseason in the first round against the Los Angeles Clippers. His huge third quarter for the Mavericks, where he had 10 points to lead the Mavericks, really got the turn, turned the tide for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm going to get the phrase right at some point, but you get my drift here. I'm so excited. I got my words all twisted up. But Tim Hardaway Jr. was able to swing the momentum, boys and girls, to be able to help the Dallas Mavericks be able to stake what would be a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter. But again, the three-point shooting of the Mavericks, whether it was Tim Hardaway Jr., whether it was P.J. Washington, whether it was Josh Green, everyone putting in that kind of work to be able to help them. Again, a massive 18-4 run that turned the entire momentum of the game around as the Mavericks shot 50% from three and 40% overall. You look at those third quarter numbers in specifics, the Dallas Mavericks shooting 4 of 8 from downtown, 10 of 25 overall from the field, as they were able to establish what would be a 10-point lead at 99-89 going into that third quarter. But I want to stop down on Tim Hardaway because as maligned as he is, as someone who gets a lot of criticism from Mavericks fans at times for his decision-making, whether it's trying to dribble and put the ball in the basket or his shot selection at times, I've said it before on this podcast, and I will continue to say it again. You're going to need Tim Hardaway Jr. to help you win games in the postseason. I even said it in my Game 2 preview video leading into Game 2 against the Thunder that Tim Hardaway Jr. was going to have to be an X factor. If you listen to the pregame show on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network with Chuck Cooperstein talking about the idea that Tim Hardaway Jr. would have to make his presence felt in this series and starting in Game 2 because you don't have Maxi Kleber to be able to help stretch the floor from the three-point line. So you're missing his three-point shooting. And yes, is Tim Hardaway Jr. going to be a liability at times on the defensive end? Yes, he is. But at the same time, his three-point shooting is invaluable, especially when the Thunder go small, and his ability to be able to knock down shots and put pressure on this Thunder defense with his scoring off the bench is paramount. And it showed up big time in Game 2 for this Mavericks team when they needed him most. Him and P.J. Washington, absolutely sensational together, combining for 46 points in this game, going a combined 9 of 15 from the three-point line as Tim Hardaway Jr. went 2 of 4 from downtown. Of course, P.J. Washington, as we detailed, went 7 of 11. But these are the types of moments that can swing games and swing series when it comes to how close these teams are, because the Thunder kept coming. You saw in Game 2 the runs that they were making, whether it be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being able to get downhill, Chet Holmgren being able to do what he does. The Thunder are going to continue to punch back when it comes to their abilities. They're too good. They're too efficient. But two things I would say that the Mavericks did much better in Game 2 that they did in Game 1. They shared the basketball much better, and they protected the ball much better in Game 2. You look at the numbers that highlight what I'm talking about. The Mavericks in Game 2 only had 10 turnovers, and they had 30 assists on their 42 made field goals. When you're sharing the basketball, but most importantly, you're valuing possession against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, another thing that we talked about going into Game 2. Oklahoma City is too damn good for you to be able to turn the ball over and think that they won't make you pay for the mistakes if you turn over the ball. They had 8 steals in Game 1, and you were able to see in this game they only had 5. And the Dallas Mavericks made sure that they were efficient on the possessions that they had. They made the ball move, and they made and executed the shots when they had opportunities, when they were wide open. And that's all that you can ask for against a terrific and talented team against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because when you look at this game and you start to break down the numbers overall for what happened, both teams made 42 field goals. In fact, the Dallas Mavericks went 42 of 90 from the field. The Oklahoma City Thunder went 42 of 89 from the field. So virtually identical. The difference in this game was the fact that the Mavericks were the ones who were able to bomb away from the three-point line, and it be the difference in this game. The Oklahoma City Thunder were number 1 in the NBA this season, shooting the three ball at 38.9%. This game, they only shot 33%, going 10 of 30 from 3. The Dallas Mavericks went 18 of 37 from 3 at 48.6%. That's the difference in your ball game when you look at what they were able to do. The Mavericks going 17 of 24 from the free throw line. The Thunder went 16 of 17, so only a +1 in terms of the free throw margin. We just detailed the field goals. We detailed the difference in the game being the fact that they were able to make threes and the Thunder were not able to. And another thing that the Mavericks did much better in game 2 versus what they did in game 1, which was control on the glass. They out-rebounded the Thunder 44-41, and most importantly, they were able to corral defensive rebounds and finish off defensive possessions, which was evidence in the fourth quarter. The Oklahoma City Thunder for the game only had 8 offensive rebounds. You remember in game 1, they had 16. And for the Thunder, that 8 rebounds on the offensive glass that they had in game 2 is about what they did on average during the regular season in the NBA, where they were the second worst offensive rebounding team in the league at just over 8 rebounds on the offensive glass per game during the year. And it was the defense in the fourth quarter for the Mavericks that was really able to hold on to things in that fourth quarter. The defense for the Mavericks held the Thunder to just 1 of 7 from the three-point line and 8 of 24 overall from the field, as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander only had 7 points. Luka had 7, but it was the Mavericks' key scoring down the stretch. Again, P.J. Washington cutting to the basket for a dunk to extend the Mavericks lead to 11 with just over 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. capping off what was a spectacular night for him, drilling that left corner three-pointer as the shot clock was running down with just under 2.5 minutes left in the game to give the Mavericks what was an 11-point lead once again. Just a microcosm of what the Mavericks were able to do in terms of shooting the basketball and executing the scouting report. Tim Hardaway Jr. drilling a left corner three-pointer to be able to punctuate this win for the Dallas Mavericks. But big shots by Tim Hardaway Jr. throughout the course of the game. I mentioned the huge shot that Josh Green had at the end of the first half with 9 seconds left, where that was really a potential 6-point swing by able to have them leading at 68-62 at halftime. So look, a total team effort and win by the Mavericks for what they were able to do from the three-point line. And I can't not talk about game 2 without talking about Kyrie Irving and the spectacular game that he had. And you say, Kevin, how can you say that Kyrie Irving had a spectacular game when it only had 9 points? If you watch the game and how he controlled the game on offense and on defense, Kyrie Irving with 11 assists in the game, had 2 steals, had 2 blocks. His energy and effort on the defensive end, him being the maestro and the orchestrator of the Mavericks offense throughout the entirety of the night, he was absolutely sensational for the Mavericks and gave them exactly what they needed, while the others, whether it was P.J. Washington, whether it was Tim Hardaway Jr., obviously for Luka Doncic, who continues to battle that right knee sprain, Kyrie Irving was the stabilizing force in game 2. And again, another example of why Kyrie Irving is the perfect fit for this team at this critical juncture of their season. Because yes, Jalen Brunson has been spectacular for the New York Knicks, but for Kyrie Irving's leadership, having been there in championship moments, having hit some of the biggest shots in NBA history, he understands how to manage a game, let the game come to him. And now as he's continued to go on his career, understand what the moment calls for him to do for his team to be exactly what they need him to be in those championship moments. And Kyrie Irving was especially terrific in game number 2. He had a nice steal on Chet Holmgren on the perimeter early on in that first half. And shout out to Daniel Gafford. He was also in double figures. He had 13 points and 7 rebounds. He hurt his finger, but it looks like he's going to be okay going into game number 3. But Kyrie Irving was, I thought, sensational in game 2 with his ability to lead, orchestrate, and just be the maestro that the Mavericks needed to bring that sense of calm and poise for them, where you saw the Thunder. Look, the Thunder are going to be a tough out in this series. You saw them throughout the course of this game, multiple double-digit leads that the Mavericks had. The Thunder were able to walk them down, and eventually the Thunder were able to take a lead in this game. But the poise of the Mavericks won the day by what they were able to do and allowing their guys to be able to play the way that they were capable of. And again, huge shout out to Tim Hardaway Jr. going 6 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from downtown. Luka Doncic going 5 of 8 from 3. But P.J. Washington being the story for the Mavericks, being that guy with 7 of 11 from downtown, the 11 rebounds that he had, even though he did foul out in the game, He did everything that he needed to do. He had 2 steals as well in the game, so providing the defense as well. This was a terrific win. And again, the Mavericks showing their toughness, their mettle, and their ability to pick themselves up after a difficult game 1 loss. We know the history when it comes to Jason Kidd being the Mavericks head coach in game 1, now 0-5 as Mavericks head coach in playoff games in game 1 situations. But what his teams have been able to do, whether it was being down 2-0 to the Phoenix Suns, whether it was being down 1-0 to the Los Angeles Clippers, they were able to find a way to get themselves a win when they needed it most. And now, having stolen home court advantage, now have a chance coming back to the American Airlines Center on Saturday to really put themselves in a terrific position with a couple of games at home. But they handled their business on the road and did what they had to do, which was get a split against OKC at the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. So for the Mavericks, a terrific win for them, a 9-point win on the road, and now they get to go home with an opportunity to take a 2-1 lead. But again, a total team effort from several guys. Josh Green going 4 of 6. He was 3 of 5 from downtown. We detailed the big threes that he had. But the stars of the night, Luka Doncic, continuing to show it on both ends of the floor. You heard the clip at the beginning of our show. Leading. Him and Kyrie Irving are going to be the leaders for this team, and the Mavericks will take their cues from the 2 of them to be able to win these games, and Luka Doncic really providing that. And again, getting back to his 3-point shooting, where he shot over 38% from 3 on over 10 threes attempted per game this year. He finally reminded us why he has been so devastatingly good this season, especially from downtown, going 5 of 8 from 3. Hopefully, this is the beginning of the turnaround for the shooting slump that Luka Doncic has been in, and for him to continue to break out in a major way going forward for the rest of the series. But the Mavericks get the 119-110 win over the Oklahoma City Thunder to tie their series at 1 game apiece, with game 3 on Saturday afternoon. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Appreciate you hanging out with me through all of this show here on Inside the Mavs. You could download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating. Write a review for it while you're there. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, like and comment on the video as well. And let me know how you're feeling about the Dallas Mavericks after getting that 9-point win to tie their series at 1 game apiece. We'll have our preview episode for game number 3 dropping on Friday as well to get you ready for game 3 on Saturday between the Mavericks and the Thunder. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. This has been Inside the Mavs, presented by Oreo. We'll talk to you later. Peace.